Before starting any MSB product repair, there are a few crucial tips to keep in mind. When touching any circuit boards or electrical components, it is always best to touch the chassis of the product first or use an ESD-safe work surface or grounding bracelet to prevent any electrostatic discharge from harming the product. It is important to keep track of all hardware throughout the build process to prevent any loose hardware from getting left inside the unit. Also, keep in mind that there is a variety of hardware used in each product. Some products use soft nylon screws to prevent unwanted electrical connections. These screws are delicate and can cross-thread very easily. Other products have crucial heat-sensitive devices. If over-tightened, they can crack and shorten the life of the product. Pay careful attention to what type of hardware is being used and how it is being used when disassembling your product. Start by removing any digital input modules and blanks. Then flip down the release lever on the fiber module before pulling it out of the jack panel. Then flip the unit over and start by using a 7/64 Allen driver to remove the 10-6-32 cover screws and lock washers. Do not remove the two smaller screws located at the back edge of the cover. These are only removed if you are changing the jack panel plate itself. Be sure to keep track of all your hardware throughout the repair process. Next, use a number 1 Phillips to remove the two 440 screws at the corners of the jack panel. Once removed, you can lift off the cover by picking up the back edge and pulling it out of the chassis. For now, set the chassis aside and make space to work on the subassembly that is mounted into the cover. Use a 1/4-inch socket to remove the green 632 ground screw. Now use a number 1 Phillips to remove the 9 440 board screws with each of their flat washers and lock washers. Then use a number 1 Phillips to remove the 8 256 screws along the connectors. Then use a number 2 Phillips to remove the two 632 screws for the IEC connector on the jack panel. Now you can lift the board pair out of the chassis and separate them by pulling apart the connector at the front edge. Before reinstalling the board set, reapply non-silicone, non-conductive thermal joint compound to the two metal posts in the middle of the base metal. When reinstalling the board set, reconnect them at the front edge and then start by gently guiding the connectors back into the appropriate holes in the jack panel. To help align the board and ensure everything is properly seated, start by using a number 2 Phillips to reinstall the two 632 screws around the IEC connector on the jack panel. Now, reinstall the 8 256 connector screws with the appropriate lock washers and flat washers. Then use a number 1 Phillips to reinstall the 9 440 board screws with each of their lock washers and flat washers. Use a 1/4-inch socket to reinstall the green 632 ground screw. One thing to check before reinstalling your subassembly into the chassis is that the ground wire loops around and stays below the top of the blue transformer and the black power supply. Then start by setting the front edge of the subassembly into the chassis to align the two before setting down the back of the subassembly and pushing it slightly forward into place. Start by using a number 1 Phillips to reinstall the two 440 screws in the corner of the jack panel. Using a 7/64 Allen driver, reinstall the 10 632 screws and lock washers. It is best to start in each of the 4 corners when installing these screws to ensure proper alignment of the cover. Once the cover is installed, you can flip the unit over and reinstall each of your digital input modules and blanks. Lastly, push the fiber module into the jack panel and then flip up the latch. If this latch is left loose, it will cause a grounding error on your digital director. Now your product is ready to go back in the system.